Thousands have taken to the streets of Cuba in the largest mass demonstrations for over 25 years. Public protests on this scale are very rare in the communist-controlled state and reflect growing anger over hunger, high prices and the government's handling of the pandemic. The US President Joe Biden called on the Cuban regime to listen to their people, but the Cuban president said US sanctions were to blame. Our North America editor John Sopel reports.
Libertad, the crowd in Havana shouts, or freedom. But while many Cubans feel this in their hearts, it's extremely rare for protesters to take to the streets to give vent to their anger in this one-party communist state.
We are here because of the repression against the people. They are starving us to death. Havana is collapsing. We have no house, we have nothing. But they have the money to build hotels, and they have us starving.
And shouting, down with the dictatorship, as many of the protesters did, can come with a heavy price. But a toxic cocktail of economic collapse, a faltering response to the pandemic and lack of civil liberties has emboldened these people. And the response of the president, blame your overmighty neighbour just 90 miles to the north, the United States.
There will be a revolutionary response. So we call upon all the revolutionaries in the country, all the communists, to take to the streets of any of the places where these provocations are going to take place.
For decades, Cuba was a flashpoint in the Cold War between the US and the Soviet Union.
The familiar communist brainwashing technique is displayed in propaganda books, constantly spewed out as required reading,
nearly sparking a nuclear confrontation between the superpowers. In this period, hundreds of thousands of Cubans fled to the US and to Miami. And it was no surprise that last night the exiled community was out in force to support their countrymen. Support that's come from the American president too.
I don't think we've seen anything like this protest in a long, long time, if quite frankly ever. The United States stands firmly with the people of Cuba as they assert their universal rights, and we call on the government of Cuba to refrain from violence and their attempts to silence the voice of the people of Cuba.
This is being watched incredibly closely by the White House. Sanctions that were intensified in the Trump era have not been relaxed by Joe Biden. What needs to be weighed is whether this is just a spasmodic outburst or the start of a Cuban spring and something much more fundamental. John Sopel, BBC News, Washington.